You guys can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone. I'm Izzy, as I said. I work for POW. I'm the program director for POW. I will just be starting us off tonight. So here's a little agenda. Just a note that this meeting is being recorded. We're going to start off with a little overview of POW Canada. I know most of you are probably members and hopefully have a pretty good grasp on POW, but if you're new to POW, this will help you understand it a little bit better. We'll go over a little bit of the challenge, housekeeping. There's a little bit of admin stuff that we need to cover, and then we'll pass it off to Greg and Graham to chat with you about carbon calculations and how to reduce your carbon footprint. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A, and that we will ask you to put your questions in the chat at the end, and then we have a moderator that will be asking Greg and Graham the questions. So like I said, I work for POW. I'm also a professional skier. I've been an Arc'teryx athlete since 2015. I started working with POW in 2019, and pretty funny because Greg actually recommended me for the job. So I owe this great position to him. Thanks, Greg. What is POW? So POW, a little bit of background for you. It was founded in 2007 by professional snowboarder Jeremy Jones in the United States. And since then, POW US, or like POW, has grown really significantly. They have a pretty strong political influence in the US. They've made many trips to the White House. They have a staff of 15 people and a really massive social audience. POW Canada was launched in 2018, and we're pretty small still. We have about 11,000 members, but we're definitely poised to be a leader in the climate change movement here in Canada. So we seek to unite and organize Canada's massive outdoor community to take action against climate change. Our vision is to do just that, to take people that are really passionate about the outdoors and turn them into effective climate advocates. We do that because we believe that if you love adventure and nature, you should be willing to protect it. And our vision for the future is where we've transformed our economy and energy systems and cut out carbon emissions in line with the Paris Agreement. So everything we're doing is always kind of keeping those Paris Climate Agreement agreements in mind. Sorry. A really high level overview of our policies. So we are pushing for a shift to non-fossil fuel based energy and clean technologies, renewables. We push carbon pricing. We believe that this is a great solution to climate change, to solving climate change. We're pushing for powerful incentives. So changes in policy that incentivize people and companies to choose and develop low carbon technologies. And we also want to empower Canadians through policy. So create policies that position Canadian communities, businesses, and workers, make it so that they can transition towards a clean, low carbon future. And this is new on the bottom, unofficially but we're working on we're doing a lot of research right now into divestment. And so that is something that we will be pushing some big campaigns about in the coming year. So how we achieve these policies, number one, through advocacy. So we build campaigns that speak to our audience of outdoor enthusiasts. We do a lot of research and reporting on the economic impacts of climate change on the outdoor industry. And we collaborate with other environmental groups to take action and spread the word on issues that they're fighting for to a new demographic. This year, we had 3 really big climate policy wins. If you've been following POW for a while, you definitely saw these hashtags, reject tech, decline the mine, and new path. And those were big advocacy campaigns we did. We had great engagement on them. I'm not going to dive into them too much, but if you want more info, you should definitely go to our website, and under on the news page, there's our 2020 year in review, and you can read more about all the stats and how we affected change there. We also achieve our policy goals, our goals through education. So we have a Hot Planet Cool Athletes program, and it's developed in partnership with master's students at the University of Waterloo Center on Climate Change. And that is kind of a multifaceted program. We have an interactive video presentation, some really cool student challenges. So they're like, a couple of them are year-long student projects, some are a bit shorter. And then a educator resource page. It's this massive library of resources for teachers so they can dive into teaching their students about climate change. And our goal is to educate a minimum of 10,000 high school students every year. Finally, inspiration. So we work really hard to just motivate Canadians to join the movement. And we do that by collaborating with a team of, we have about 56 professional athletes that are on board with POW. We have 11 regional chapters. We have some really big name brand partners in the industry. We have a resort program, and we work with retailers. And we work with all these groups to build campaigns and tell compelling stories on social media that will hopefully inspire our members to get more involved with climate action. And that kind of brings us to this 12-month challenge, so that, yeah, we're hoping that this challenge inspires you as members to take action and make a difference in your own lives. It's been a really huge success so far. We're just a few weeks in, but we have 1,100 people signed up already. And we're super excited to see how the year goes and see it grow. I just wanted to note that a few people have been having issues getting signed up, or they're accessing the platform. So if you have any tech issues, please email me, izzy@protectourwinters.ca, and I'll help you solve those. If you want to get more involved, follow POW on Instagram. Greg is going to be doing frequent updates on our Instagram stories feed. We also created a Facebook group. If you search POW 12-month climate challenge, you'll find it. And we hope that this is a place that you as challengers can come together and discuss and share how your journey with this challenge is going. I wanted to say a big, huge thank you to our sponsors for this challenge. Arc'teryx has contributed amazing prizes for every month of the year. Suunto is on board, and then we've just had some other partners come on board, Buff and hopefully Cliff, who will be providing some great incentives for you to stick with this challenge. I know it's hard, but it'll be really worth it. And yeah, I also want to note that next month is the theme is spend and save sustainably. And so, yeah, it's all about money and its relationship to the changing climate. And I really hope that you guys will stick with us for February. And that's it. So I'm going to pass it off to Greg and Graham Hill now. Greg's going to take over. And yeah, we can get to the meat of this presentation.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. For sure, when we started dreaming this up in the summer, we didn't know how many people were going to be interested. And then once we started thinking about it and developing the strategies for it, we realized there was a lot of interest. We were sitting in Revelstoke and just talking about what we can do. And, you know, we're looking at policies, and POW really pushes policies, and that's super important. But I think there also has to be a whole mindset change on our level, because the government kind of reflects the people. And if we aren't changing, then why is the government going to change? So sitting there on the lawns, there's this guy, Chris in Revelstoke, and he said, well, what about sort of monthly challenges? And then from that small comment, it's kind of blossomed into this. And, you know, if we have 1,100 people signed up, and that starts all those 1,100 people do little changes, each of those little steps is going to add up to a lot. So it's definitely pretty exciting. So thanks for joining. Something that I learned when I took my brother's Carbonaut courses is that this is a judgment-free zone. None of us are perfect, and that's a huge thing. And everything is, none of us are going to be perfect either, but we're looking for progression. We're just looking to be better, and that's huge. And you know, there's lots of ways I'm bad. Sure, I've got an electric car, but my house has a ton of natural gas, and so there's all these things. And you just got to choose your own battles, and not feel guilty about it, because guilt isn't going to help us, but action is. What I was thinking I'd do is I just kind of talk about my little journey along the way, and how Graham, as my older brother, has influenced me, and how in a way I've kind of become a bit of his disciple in preaching his word. And then kind of after that, we'll kind of go into Graham and see his insights, and hopefully you'll see why I've become his disciple. So I'm going to find my PowerPoint here. Hopefully it starts. Why is it that technology has this habit of not doing exactly what you want it to do when it should do it? But
Bam. Oh.
Oh, guess I just have to use the clicks on here. So yeah, this is me. I'm Greg Hill. I'm a professional skier, adventurer, everything like that. But my passion started back in Quebec. I was just a little boy growing up with tons of snow, and we skipped school a lot to go skiing, and it just, the mountains became a passion. I'm one of 6, 7. Jesse would for sure. There's lots of us. But growing up, I'm the youngest guy on the left there. Graham's the guy with the glasses, and Adrian, Jeremy, and Christy, and Natalie. Like, we were a fun crew, and then Jesse joined us later on. But as the younger brother with an older brother 5 years older than him, you tend to be influenced by them. Young, impressionable boy, and then there's your bro. And as it is, he set the trend. He did everything really well, and as a brother, you're like, well, God, what am I gonna do if he's done all those things so well? Like, what can I do? And luckily, I found some mountains, and it turned out I had a lot of energy because it went down my own path and kind of set my own footprints. And it's been really exciting. And I can't complain that I've become a mountain man. But basically, with Graham as an older brother, he was, as you'll see, he's created all these incredible websites and companies, and he was super successful. And at 26, I think he sold his first company for quite a lot of money. And my joke since then was that he makes his millions and I hike mine. So yeah, I started to try to kind of set myself apart in the ski world because I didn't want to just be a ski bum. I wanted to be somebody who lived life and pushed limits. And I started kind of just seeing what my potential was in a day. I did 50,000 feet up and down in a day, which was pretty amazing. And then slowly just kind of focused on these little watches and these little accomplishments to make myself feel like I was living life and not just being a ski bum. For years, I trained up, and I climbed and skied 2 million feet. And this is what a lot of people know me for this endless endurance and optimism. And, it was an incredible year, but the whole time that I was doing that challenge, I took flights to South America with my family. We flew around to the States to go skiing. Also, I had a big, large F350, and quite often I'd be driving solo for an hour and a half to go ski and enjoy the mountains. And there was this sort of imbalance where I was getting all this inspiration from nature, yet I was also killing it on the other hand. And it was always in there percolating because of Graham, really, because while I was climbing and skiing my 2 million feet, he came out with this cool TED talk, which I highly suggest you look at, Why I'm a Weekday Vegetarian. And it was really good. And at the time, I was not ready for it. I was focusing on my vertical, my family, and everything. And I remember when Graham would be over for Christmas or what have you, and it'd be a weekday, and we'd make him eat meat. And it was this kind of like, hey, we got him. But slowly that idea kind of grew on me, and it really starts to make sense later on in my life when I was ready. But at this point, I wasn't ready for it. But it was definitely a lot of fun just kind of giving him a little bit of meat during the week. But like I said, the carbon issue was kind of definitely getting to me. And after I did my 2 million feet, I kind of looked at myself and I said, well, okay, I've got followers, I run a blog. How could I inspire them to be a bit better? And for this month in 2012, I decided to bike to every mountain I skied. And it was a funny goal because it was really neat. I didn't use any gas that whole month. I climbed 11 mountains and did lots of skiing, but nobody else was following me. And it really made me realize how important that changes have to be somewhat easy. Sure, this crazy fit guy can bike and climb and ski, but if nobody else is going to do it because it's too hard, then it's not really that useful. So this was a great month of my life, but I really just learned that for change, we want it to be easy, and at least the rewards be far better than the effort put in. So yeah, that was a cool challenge. Total fail. At the same time, Graham again was coming up with another cool idea: less stuff, more happiness, about living in smaller spaces and having less stuff. And it was, again, other ideas that are just kind of percolating in the back of my head. And then for me, one of the biggest things that happened was this. This was in Pakistan. I made a poor decision and basically got swept away by this avalanche 20,000 feet up in the Himalayas. And luckily, through luck, myself, I don't know what, but I survived, which was fantastic. Because after that, in the 6, 9 months, year and a half healing, I really thought a lot about myself. I kind of looked at myself and I was like, who or what am I? Like, if Greg Hill's always been about all this adventure, what else is there in his life that I could be remembered by better, or that I could do better, that would just, I don't leave a better impression on the world. And it did. It took me quite a while to heal from it, but quite a while to really figure out what was important to me. And what I realized is that looking back at what I'd seen in my life is that glaciers were melting all around me. And 20 years in Revelstoke, and this was happening all summer long. And honestly, I wish glaciers made a screaming noise or something, because maybe we'd be better, but they're so quiet and it just drip, 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 and slowly they just disappear. Here's like the last time I'd been to the Athabasca Glacier, I was 2 meters up on a glacier. And then I came back this was 2018, 12 years later, and boom, it's down to earth. So I definitely realized that I was seeing a lot of change and really seeing that I wasn't doing anything to stop it. I was showing my kids that life is incredible and the mountains are incredible and passion's great, but I was also kind of taking them in a helicopter and showing them that, oh yeah, do what you want, live a great life, and don't think about the impacts of it. And that's when I really realized it was time to change, because I wanted to influence my kids in the right direction, my family, and all the people I could influence in my little circle. So it's been a journey since then. I always like this little cartoon, because Daddy, what did you do in the climate war? Like, I want to know that in the future I'll look back and say, okay, I did as much as I could, or I did the best I could. Because instead of just sitting back, if you sit back, you're part of the problem, but I'm trying to become part of the solution. And it's an interesting one, because you got to do this. You got to calculate your carbon footprint. And I don't know what you guys thought when you calculated yours, but it is really eye-opening, especially for me at that time. I was a jet-setting athlete. I'd be in Norway skiing. I'd fly home for a week. I'd go to France skiing. I'd fly home back. I'd get on my big truck. I'd get on my snowmobile. I'd ski all day. Then I'd be heli skiing. It was gross. Like, I don't even think that this is the calculation I did then. This calculation is not even close to what I was at. I couldn't put in the helicopter times. I couldn't put in the snowmobile. And it just made me realize that I was way out of control. And then I finally started to look back at that carbon calculation, and you start like kind of trying to pick your battles. And this is what Graham's going to talk about his big five, because there's a lot of things out there, but there's certain things you can do, and some are a lot easier. And like I mentioned, it's nice if it's an easier change. And so finally, 10 years after Graham's weekday vegetarian talk, it started to make sense to me, and I started doing it. And since then, I'm mostly a vegetarian. You know, sometimes I just had a sausage, but it's because it was from the weekend. But you know, the idea is just less meat. You know, glorifying the glory bowl. There's nothing quite like a good glory bowl. I had that 2 nights ago. But yeah, I started really looking at those changes and being an athlete. So here we are. This was an incredible adventure we went on. But look in the background, and what do you see? You see 4 of us, but you see 3 trucks, 3 snowmobiles. It was kind of gross the way I acted. So since then, I've been really changing, and I changed my diet. But then I was like, well, what else can I change? And I realized that for me, I could really change the way I accessed adventure. And Chris Rubens, a buddy who's a professional skier with me and part of my family now, he went on this guilt trip. And during the guilt trip, they went to Greenland, and they really realized their own impacts. And what was great about that is I finally had a wicked partner to go down these hard journeys to figure out if there are better ways. And here we are starting a 10-day traverse on bikes and trying to just do it as best we can, do it a lot differently than we had in years. And you can kind of see we're starting to smile, and we think it's a bit foolish, but we're hoping that the rewards are worth it. I bought an electric car, but I hadn't gotten it yet. So Chris and I had to rent a Tesla to get down to the States. And we did this wicked electric car trip that was awesome. And I've actually done this trip a few times now with my own Bolt. And we went down the coast, and like Chris and I just started trying to see what we could do with electric cars, because the truck on the left is his, it's still his, but I had that same truck with a snowmobile, and I went from that truck to that little car. And you can imagine how that kind of changed my own personal impacts. Since then, I've driven basically 100,000 plus kilometers in it, you know, and I got it for my family just to explore electric vehicles, because I knew they're better. In Revelstoke, our electricity comes from the dam, and it's all renewable. So it's a valuable way to change your footprint, because our electricity is all water. It's all that snow melting off the mountains. And I also wanted to prove at the time in 2017, electric cars, it was like, well, really, can they do anything? They're just for commuting. And I got this little Bolt, 2-wheel drive, and I wanted to prove that it's not just commuting and that you can adventure and live a great life. And years later, I'm still loving that car. It's definitely been a great journey. You know, up in Rogers Pass, I could even charge while I'm skiing, which is pretty rad. So I could even ski for free and just charge up there all day while I'm skiing. So out of that, made this movie Electric Greg that if you haven't seen it, it's 19 minutes. It's kind of what I wanted to show with the movie is one, the challenge of it all, but one that it's all worthwhile. Because all these changes are worthwhile. Last summer, I grew a bunch more vegetables to just lower my impact that way. And it's so satisfying to work hard towards change and then to taste those changes, be it in your garden or just driving the electric car, knowing I'm being better. You know, look at that. Like, this is 1 week of harvesting from my garden last summer, and you know, I'm still eating the salsa from it. So it's all these little changes can be worthwhile. But one of the things that was huge is POW Canada. I really realized that yes, I'm an individual and I can do my little changes, but we need to empower more people. And POW's been awesome. I've really enjoyed the journey with them because it really is. My passion is the mountains, so turn it into a purpose and helping others along the way is really exciting, which is what this 12 months is all about. It's just about you guys and me doing these little changes. Some of them will work, some of them won't, but taking these steps to just trying to be better and not worrying that we're not perfect. Because like I said, it's all about progress. If you look at this list, I mean, there's lots of different things here, and some of them are going to work for you and some of them won't. But if we don't try, we'll never know. So I'm super excited that you guys have joined. The biggest thing, like we were talking about January, is reduce, reusing. There's also refusing, but the relearning, and that's why that carbon calculation is so important, because you have to learn, you have to start somewhere. And when I did mine 4 years ago and redid it just the other day, I can see the changes, and it's nice to have seen those changes and actually be able to quantify and realize that it feels great. And a couple of months ago, I started Graham's Carbonite program, and in a little second, he's going to talk a lot about it, but it really is worthwhile. We want to live a conscientious life where it's not just frivolous. Sorry, I lost the track. It's not just frivolous convenience, which is what our whole world's become, but it's a conscious life where we make the right decisions. And I think in the end, it's going to be emotionally worth it to make these changes. And yeah, money and all that other stuff is really important. But I think when you're going to bed at night, knowing you've been making some great decisions, that's going to feel a lot better than knowing that you screwed the earth but have $10 million in your bank or whatever. But that's the biggest thing to me, and that's what Electric Greg showed, is that it is definitely worth it just trying to be better. I'm not perfect, but just taking those steps feel great. This is a great quote. I don't think it's Gandhi, but be the change you want to see in the world. We're all, watching Greta Thunberg last summer, and we all want this change, but we have to be that change. So I'm going to pass it off to my bro, and he's going to talk about how we can be that change that we want to see and how important it is. How's that sound, G?
Sounds great. Thank you, Greg. That made me blush. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And that was a great presentation. There's a bunch of stuff that I hadn't seen in there. It was very, very fun. I am just pulling up a little presentation here to share with you guys. Let's see if this works. Seems to be. It's about 20 minutes. There we go. Okay, that's good. Great. It's about 20 minutes, and it sounds like Greg and I are going to do a little. Oh, I'm not focused for some reason. Going to do a little Q&A after. So if you have questions, we'll do my best to address them. Huh. Okay, I guess I'm somewhat focused here. It's 6:20. Okay, great. So first of all, thank you guys for being here. You are special. There are a lot of things you could be doing right now, and you are sitting on some weird Zoom talking about the environment, and that is not a normal thing to do, and it's important. And so thank you for doing it. My name is Graham Hill. I'm Greg Hill's brother. My quick background, I fell in love with the internet in the mid-90s, started a web firm, there, grew it to 60 people and sold it. So I was an early internet kid. I designed this iconic New York souvenir. It's a ceramic cup with like a paper cup. It's an ongoing business that my mom and sister run, are on this call. And then in 2004, I started one of the earliest green blogs, which had a whole new approach to environmentalism. We were very quickly the biggest green blog or green site period on the web, and held on to that for a number of years until I sold it to Discovery. And then I did Small Living via Life Edited and gave a few TED Talks on that. Did some cool transforming apartments. My new project is called The Carbonauts. It's at thecarbonauts.com. Yeah, basically, if you look, listen to any of our institutions and the vast majority of our scientists, what is clear is that we are losing the fight against climate change in a really bad way. There's been a big movement for decades, but it is not happening. We are losing. The good thing is that it isn't over. We have amazing technologies and solutions, and we just need to get the personal and political will to make this happen, which is entirely possible. There's a beautiful green world to be had, and I want to help you guys take some steps toward it so you can influence others. One thing that has gone well is in the last couple decades is that awareness has grown and grown. It's really higher than ever, which is terrific. The problem with awareness is it doesn't get us there. It just doesn't. It's not sufficient to just know about things. So climate change doesn't give a fuck about awareness. It really doesn't. So all that really matters is we're either adding carbon to the atmosphere or we're not. It's physics, and awareness really doesn't play into this. The very cool thing is that many of us can literally be carbon positive when you include offsets, and so that is very positive, and that's good. So our big challenge really is to move people from awareness to action. There are definitely some more people that need to be aware, but most of the focus is on awareness, and really we need to make most of the focus being on taking those aware and moving them to action. People care. You guys are a great illustration of that, being on this call period. But if you care about this and you sit down to try to figure it out, steal a little time away from your significant other, your family, or your life, your job, you try to figure out what to do in what order and how to do it, you throw up your arms because it's very difficult to figure out, even if you know your way around this stuff. There's a lot of misinformation, and there's literal disinformation by big oil and others. It's hard to figure out. And so the Carbonauts is trying to make this easy, because we know that people, it's not a reasonable expectation to how people figure it out. And so we focus on something called the Big Five, and I'll go through that in this session. Basically, we run a 6-week Zoom program, about an hour a week. I just finished one a few minutes ago. And we basically lead people through why you would do these different things, how to do them, the specific steps, and then we give them the community, the accountability to get it done. People tend to slash their footprints by 10 to 40%, so really significantly. And if you do everything, you should end up break even or even saving money, which is great. And then finally, at the end, offset the rest and become a carbon positive person, which is terrific. Our sort of idea of change, or theory of change, is that we get people to make the changes in their personal lives, to live compelling but lower footprint lives, and then tactfully influence others around them, their friends, their family, others, and we build a movement. We get some momentum. We build social norms so that we get to 3, 4, 5% of the population. And once we do that, that's when governments notice, that's when corporations notice, that's when other citizens notice, and that's when big systemic change happens. That's when we get the policies that we need, that's when we spend the trillions of dollars that we need to invest, and that's when this whole thing turns around and we pull ourselves back from the brink. Okay, so let's get into it. For context, Probably 30 years ago, most people didn't know about calories. Now people generally have a sense. The same idea with carbon tons of emissions. So the average American or North American, I think Canadians are probably a little less, but it's about 18 tons per year. European, a lot less at 8. Indian at 3, so a lot less. The goal that we're likely trying to head, very difficult, is probably 2 or 3 tons per person. So a lot far away from where we are at. The big 5. One of the biggest travesties of the environmental movement of the last number of decades has been that most people associate being green with recycling. And while we probably want to recycle in most cases, it's a really small part of the picture. And so this guy, Peter Kalmus, talks about this blogger who's on a flight to Asia, talking about how they are proud that they are refusing the water bottles that they're serving. And he says, that's great, do that, bring your own bottle, but also you want to recognize the fact that your flight to Asia return is the equivalent of 100,000 water bottles. So scale is important. What you pick to do, to focus on, is important, and recycling ain't it. So you want to focus exactly where it counts. In doing these things, social norms are critical. In the 70s, you used to be able to throw stuff out of your car window. No one would bat an eye. Now you wouldn't do that even if you knew you wouldn't get caught. And so social norms are very important. That's what we're trying to build. So let's get into it. This is the first of the 5. I'll lead you through the big 5. The first of 5 is renewable energy. So you want to switch your home energy to renewable energy. So at its most basic, the 3 horsemen of the apocalypse are gas, oil, and coal. So these are the guys responsible for climate change at the simplest level. There is other stuff, of course, but we want to move rapidly away from those towards sustainable renewable energy. Often renewable energy or home energy is about 1/3 of your opportunities for reduction. So it's a really big one. It's in the 5 to 15 tons per household, just to give you an idea. It generally will cost you a little something, or if you can do so rooftop solar, it actually can be a terrific investment. Beautiful thing about switching is that basically once you do it, it's done, and until you move. So it's an easy thing to make happen, which is great. So renewable energy, what can you do? First of all, if you can get rooftop solar, terrific. I'm talking to a lot of Canadians here, and because of cheap hydro, et cetera, it's not as sexy up there in terms of financial, but it still works in a lot of places. So rooftop solar is a great thing, often a terrific investment. Community solar is also an amazing thing. Basically, what that means is that you own a share in a larger solar farm in the local area, and then they send electricity to the utility, and then the utility credits you for your share. And so that's an easy way to get solar, and also allows you to do it if you're a renter, which is very cool. So we're very hip to community solar. Many places offer a green power option via your utility. And so that's, if you can't do rooftop or community, that is a great way to go. It usually costs you a little something, 1 cent, 2 cents, 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Depends on where you are, but that is super easy. And basically you tend to log into your utility and just select it and you're done. If you find that prohibitively expensive, or you're a renter, you can buy renewable energy credits. And basically what this means is that you pay a little extra, and this helps companies put renewable energy into the grid, thereby greening your electricity at home. It's not a shell game. It does make sense. It is a little complicated, but RECs are great. So that was renewable energy. Now let us talk about electric vehicles. You want to drive electric. Many of us drive cars. If we can avoid cars, great. It's not very easy to do in many places. And basically, fuel, gas or diesel, emits really significant greenhouse gases. And so it's a big part of your footprint. It also creates smog, and it causes significant asthma. Many millions of children get asthma every year, and I'm sure adults as well. And of course, they're a lot noisier than your average electric car. It's often about 1/4 of the reduction opportunity, so 5 or 10 tons, so it's significant. If you drive a bunch, the more you drive, the more significant. So the cool thing is there are solutions. There are great electric cars. Greg showed you one of them. And you like solar, you have to invest a little bit up front, but you make it up in the back end. So it takes you a couple years, but then you're saving money mostly because of the fuel, probably in particular in Canada because of the cheaper electricity. You also have less moving parts. And so you save some time, no oil changes, and just a lot less time at the shop. No smog, no asthma, less noise. They're really high performance. They're super zippy. I love them. And they allow you to go in the HOV lane. I'm not sure if it's called up Canada, but that is a nice little plus. And every company is getting into the business. There are an unbelievable number of options of all shapes and sizes. And typically you'll keep a car for a while, so this is a good thing to set it, forget it. Third step, moving along, food. So this one's a little more complicated, but let's get into it. So food doesn't have the hugest carbon footprint, and the carbonauts we tend to through line is carbon. It's not huge, but it's still definitely something. But there are other important issues, and that's why partly why we make it one of the big five. So it is proven again and again that eating less meat is a great thing for your health. I think we will look back in 10, 20 years, certain people look at it now and just be horrified at how we treat these other sentient beings. And so I think reducing the amount of them or stopping the amount you eat, period. And certainly if you are going to eat meat, supporting better animals that are taken better care of is a great thing to do. And then just how we grow our livestock. They often use a lot of water. They often create a lot of pollution. They also have a lot of land use change, cutting down forests where you end up with a lack of biodiversity. So there are many other reasons to go plant-rich versus just the carbon aspect. So you want to think about what you eat specifically, because that matters, and that's so largely moving away from beef, lamb, dairy, etc. You also want to think about how much you waste. The average household wastes about $160 of food a month. And so every time you throw something out, it means you've doubled its footprint. So you want to reduce wastage as much as possible. And then disposal is really important, how you get rid of it. So when you put it in a landfill, it digests anaerobically and it creates methane. And so that's why you want to compost. So let's go a little bit deeper in this. So specifically, you want to reduce there's some larger culprits, beef being the major one. It's way higher than most other things. Lamb also, dairy is high, and farm fish is interesting. So if you can just reduce those and move to other meats, you're making a lot of progress right in itself. It's going to be healthier, of course, nicer for the animals, and help on many other different things. In terms of reducing waste, it's mostly about planning. And so this is about planning your meals and thinking about whether you're going to be around, and really sort of thinking it through. It's all about planning. So you want to buy less food and you want to buy it more often. That's a good move. You really want to know what's in your fridge. Don't hide things. Put the perishable stuff, make it as visible as possible. And really make sure you understand what you have so you use as much as possible, and you eat whatever's going to go bad first. So when you're starting to make a meal, look and think, okay, what should I eat first? Pretty common sense. And then of course, you're going to still have some waste, and you're going to have all your peels and offcuts, and so you want to compost the rest. And so there are a ton of composting options. It's actually quite fun. You can even do it inside an apartment with vermiculture or bokashi. There are a few different options. But yeah, look it up. Composting is a great thing to do. Worms are really fun. I do that, but regular is fine too. And the beautiful thing about this is it makes a really valuable fertilizer, which we really need. And so you're doing a lot by composting. Fourth out of the big five is flying. Flying is a tricky one, particularly for Greg and I. sons of an airline pilot with free flights until we were 25, and I have a great love of traveling. I've been to many countries, so it's a big challenge, and it's probably a challenge for you guys since you're adventurers and like to ski in various places. But it is very powerful, and so this is mostly about getting conscious. So it is huge. It's often when we do our pods, the carbonauts, it's often the biggest thing. And so it can be easily in the 10 plus tons. So it's really big. It is in quote unquote only 3% of overall emissions in the world at this point. But it's that those emissions are by a very small number of people. So very relevant is it's the fastest growing form of transportation. So it's meant to get up to a quarter of our footprint by 2050 if we don't change things. So flying is a huge deal, and it's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. Distance really matters. Okay, so I live in Venice in LA. For me, if I could take one trip to Bali return or 14 trips to Baja return. And so I really want to be conscious about the decisions I make and really understand that if I'm going to Southeast Asia or something, I better go for a while and take advantage of it because it is a lot of carbon. So how do we reduce and optimize flying? First of all, we start treating it in a way like one might treat beef or lamb. You just make it a much rarer, much more special thing. So we need to acknowledge how incredible it is that we're able to fly and do these things and treat it with the respect that it deserves. It's also about budgeting. So I encourage you guys to think about a typical year, or think about the next year and figure out all the flights that you would want to do, and then understand you can use calculators online to figure out their footprint. And by doing that, you'll get a sense and you'll understand, oh, that one is actually twice as much as this other one. Is it worth doing that? And start to get a real sense of it. And then really try to set a reminder in your calendar to look forward every quarter or so and see if you can plan. What can I avoid? What can I put together? One of the silver linings of COVID is it's really introduced people to telecommuting, and a lot more people are doing that. We're realizing it's totally possible. So certainly for work, encourage your employers, or if you are an employer, just think about the money that you can save and the hassle, et cetera. Telecommuting is a great thing, and that really will slash your footprint. Also, just ask yourself, what's closer? So I don't know, an example in LA, there's just so much neat stuff on the West Coast, like that I don't need to go elsewhere for. It's incredible rock climbing as an example. I don't necessarily have to go to South America. I want a great desert. I don't have to go to the Sahara. There's an amazing desert here. So just try to think like, what am I actually after? What's the experience I'm after, and can I get it closer? Another one is stacking trips. So say I have to go to, I'm in LA. Say I have to go to New York and I have to go to London. Well, I can do those as 2 separate trips, or I can combine them. And so then I end up making it 3 legs instead of 4. So I save a leg, which is a big deal, which is real money and real hassle. So stacking is very powerful. One little tip is there's a site called skyscanner.com. If you do a search, and then once your search is done, click on the left-hand side. It'll show you various green options. Sometimes they're way better than others. And so that's a way to sort of figure out a good green flight, because it does matter. Some flights have more people in them and higher loads and have newer planes and are more efficient. And so it can actually make a difference. One thing you definitely want to do is try to fly direct as often as possible. That's definitely less emissions. And fly economy, because you take up less space. And so if you're in business or first class, then your footprint ends up being many times higher. So all these things are going to allow you to save some money. Also time, hassle, frankly, and avoid sickness if you can skip some flights. Finally, the 5th of the big 5 is buying offsets. So the net of this is it's really hard to get to zero living in modern society, and so you need to. So how can we do it? And so basically, you want to reduce first. That's very important. reduce as much as you can first, and then offset the rest. And there were some shenanigans in the early days, some scamming that happened in terms of offsets, but those are much rarer now, and I can help you direct you to some great projects. So this is real. This is real carbon that's being avoided, or real carbon that's been sunk or sequestered. And so this is real. It's important, and it's all low-hanging fruit at this point, so it's cheap. It'll probably go up a lot in price over time. And this is a really important social norm that we want to develop. We want it to be very normal for people to be carbon positive, or at least buying offsets of some sort. And how cool! You can be a positive influence on the planet. So you reduce, offset the rest, and you're moving into carbon positive territory, which is terrific. And this is just a picture of a methane capture, which they do on landfills, and that's one offset that you can get. And yeah, so our recommendations on offsets are to buy only third-party certified. There are a few different certification groups, and that's a really great way to ensure that you're getting quality stuff. Unfortunately, some that are questionable in terms of types of projects. Planting trees can be questionable, and supporting renewable energy can also be questionable for a number of different reasons, which I can't get into right now. Projects that we think are great, but maybe not as sexy: methane capture from landfills, refrigerant destruction, fertilizer management, and urban forestry. Those are a bunch. We wanted to get those kinds of projects, and we wanted to get figure out a way we could get them for a deal for our carbonauts. And so we did a deal with TerraPass. So you can actually, if you're looking for offsets, you can buy those on our site, thecarbonauts.com. We have an area where you can buy offsets and bricks. So let's summarize. You want to focus on the big five: renewable energy, electric vehicles, plant-rich diet, reducing food waste, and composting. You want to reduce and optimize your flying, and you want to buy offsets for the rest. We want to encourage you to take action, to live it, to be that change, and then tactfully influence others. You can gently influence someone else to make change. That really accrues to you, in my opinion. If you enjoyed what we've done here, take notes. I will try to figure out how to make sure you guys can get access to this presentation. So please run with it. If you feel like you need more, please join our program. It's a 6-week program. It's a sliding scale cost, and if you can't afford it, you can also do it for free. So just check it out at thecarbonauts.com. We have one running right now and some coming up, and we make it easy. So we're here to help you do this stuff. You can do it for yourselves, perhaps for your company that you work for or that you own. And if you can think of other companies that might be interested, we are looking for people to give this to. My email is pretty easy. It's grahamhill@gmail. Contact me there. And this is simple. We've, civil rights, women's rights, we've come a fair way over the years. This couldn't be clearer. All our institutions are saying it, all our scientists, we know what way this is headed. You want to be on the right side of history. And so please join us and do it for us. Like, climate change is gonna affect us, and our actions are gonna affect us. They're also gonna affect the next generation. And so we wanna be able to look them in the eye and be proud for what we did. And so, yeah. You guys are special people taking time out of your schedule to be here, to think about this stuff. And so thank you. The world really needs you. We really need the momentum. So there you go. Thanks.
Hopefully now you guys see why I became Graham's disciple over my life. Thanks, Graham. That was awesome. Hopefully lots of people got some insights into what they can do, because there is a ton you can do. And it's worth it. Like Graham said, like let's be the changers. Let's be that change. As we were going along, there's a bunch of questions there, so we'll jump into some of them. Graham, somebody was asking why the offsets are going to get more expensive. And I remember you had a pretty quick answer to this last time.
I mean, this is just a theory, but basically at this point, offsets, it's all low hanging fruit. It's the easy stuff. So as more and more demand, that stuff dries up, and then you need to move to more expensive stuff. That's the theory. Yeah. So if you want to offset your life, it's good. It's a good thing to do now versus later.
How do you want to do this, Izzy, with the questions?
Well, Andrew's kind of keeping track of them. Are there some that stuck out to you, Andrew?
Yeah, I took made note of pretty much everything we had asked there, so I can just run through that.
Great.
Yeah, we had a question from Annika. Her question was, what are your thoughts on electric vehicles versus some of the hybrid options in order to get to harder to access areas and more remote areas? I think, Greg, that was while you were showing your journey in your electric car during the electric Greg part of your presentation. Do you want to touch on that?
It's probably a pretty neat one. My parents have an EV, or sorry, a hybrid, and they do. I mean, they drive around Revelstoke all winter, and then when they're back east, they drive around Sutton electrically, and then when they do the big drive across the country, they do it with gas. And like Annika said there too, you could also offset the gas you're using for those bigger trips, and then just ideally be electric most of the time. And I do think it's pretty neat. I mean, my little 2-wheel drive car has quite a few limitations. So there's definitely some 4x4 SUVs out there that look really interesting to me. And most of the time I do just drive 30 kilometers a day. But for me, when I got into it, I wanted to prove that it could really go the distance. And for me, one of my bigger adventures is a 75 kilometers there and 75 kilometers back. So there was no way that any of the hybrids were going to do that. So it didn't work for me, but I do see that as a good option.
Yeah, it's a great, I would say, if I can add to that, the interesting thing is most people drive a lot less than they think. And so many of these plug-in hybrids have ranges 20, 30, 40, 50 miles. So I guess twice that per kilometer. So it's significant ranges. And so, yeah, basically, I don't think anyone should have an only gas car from now on. It just doesn't make sense. And so if most of the time you're not driving much, then you're basically driving an electric car the vast majority of the time, and then you have the option you need to drive. So I'm a fan. That said, they're more expensive, but they'll come down more. Like the electric cars are getting more and more higher and higher range, and so you can even go often full electric, which is probably, to be fair, a little trickier in Canada because the cold does affect the batteries somewhat, from what I understand.
Yes. Just while we're on that topic, I was just wondering if you have any information. How do we know and what convinces people that mining for like the materials that we make electric car batteries with, how do we know that that's a better environmental choice relative to like the carbon offset or the carbon emissions of a regular car?
It's always a tough one, right? Nothing's perfect, and you're basically, sometimes you're deciding between two things, and it's like it's the same as, do you get the COVID? Do you get the new vaccine that perhaps had some risks because it was rammed through so quickly, or do you risk getting COVID? It's like you have to sort of weigh these things. So I think there's clearly some stuff to work out in terms of mining. I think people are working on it. I think it's a very significant difference driving an electric car, and you save an absolute ton of fuel. We know what that does, the creation of it, and then the burning of it. And so, yeah, I think that there are some issues to work on, but I think overall, at this point, it still makes sense.
Yeah, and also think at this point, the lithium mining is not great, that's for sure. But there's a lot of recycling programs that are building to be better and better. I've read 95% can be recycled. And as all these batteries are going to build up, there's the demand, and we're going to figure it out. For sure, it's not perfect, but that's what we were saying at the start, is progress. It's not perfection. And going electric, it has got so many different mindsets, changes to it, that it's going to change us. And sure, there's some, what is that saying? You're going to crack some eggs to make an omelet or whatever. Like there's some ugly to it, but overall, it's a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
Great. Another question we had from Bobby, she was asking, but for some tips on low waste, like going to the grocery store, I think was her point particularly. What's like a couple tips or tricks that you find work best for you in changing your habits?
I mean, we give we give a class, and I talk about I am not the world's best chef. I'll tell you that much. But in general, try to pick stuff that lasts longer. You know what I mean? Like some stuff is very perishable, and so if you can get stuff that's fresh, that's going to last longer, that's good. Buying like more often, more regular. So that's a very European style thing to do, instead of just buying a ton and then having a bunch of it go wrong. And I think like ideally just having a less full fridge is going to be a smart move, because you have more of a handle on what's in it, and can really focus on finishing stuff and wasting as little as possible. And then probably like great see-through containers, and like just a really good system so that you can really store stuff well, so it lasts longer, but also just the knowledge of what you have to work with.
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, when I go shopping, I've got those little reusable bags that I put my veggies in. But Izzy and I were talking the other day, you get a yogurt, every time you get yogurt, you get this plastic container. And so she's making yogurt at home, and you just kind of pick each little battle. And I meant to have a picture of like all the plastic that I've saved by using soap bar and shampoo bar and bamboo toothbrush and my razor, metal razor. Like it just small little changes that I've done have saved a lot of plastic over the last 2 years. But yeah, you just got to figure it all out. Some of it's going to work, some of it isn't.
We'll dive into plastics later in the challenge too. I think March. I could be wrong, but
Plastics is a big one, and there's definitely lots of cool changes coming along. I was in touch with somebody about packaging today, and it's all going to be brown algae, and ideally that can be better. It's going to be edible packaging for bars too, where you could just eat the bar that the package is in, eat the whole packaging or whatever. The changes are coming, and it's because of people like us that our mindsets are changing, that we're pushing that change overall. We're demanding better options.
Yeah.
let's shoot for one more question and then we can wrap. And I just want to mention that anyone who has further questions or discussion topics, you can post them on the Facebook group. I think that there's a lot of knowledge just within this group from what I'm seeing in the chat. So let's keep the conversations going as much as possible. Andrew, do you have one question to kind of send us off?
Yeah, I thought one of the last ones, I think a few people touched on it in the chat, which is great. And maybe Greg and Graham, can't speak for everyone, but finding out what kind of, or it was a question from Ashley. She was wondering, how do I find out what type of power my apartment is using? That was when we were, I think Graham was talking about solar, like changing the energy sources in your home. Yeah. And for a lot of people, obviously, if you're not living in a single family detached house, you may not have direct control over those kinds of things. Do you have any suggestions on like where would someone start just to find out where their electricity comes from or where their power comes from?
So I mean, if they have a utility bill, then they can start there, and then that utility's website will certainly have information, or you should be able to get it from them. If you don't have a utility bill and you just pay your landlord somehow, then you're going to have to ask them to find out. The lucky thing for you Canadians is there's a lot of hydro, and that certainly has some downsides, but I think also some upsides. But yeah, so you just got to figure out who your utility is, and then you find out what the power mix is.
Yeah, and Trevor's answer was really good. Like, he lives in an apartment, and what he did is he's using bullfrog power to offset the gas and the electricity he's using. So there, you can either try to change the strata of your apartment, or you can do that, or you can just figure out your solution by paying a little bit extra for bullfrog power, or what other options.
Right. So that's like bullfrog power, I'm sure, is an example of a renewable energy credit, the REC that we spoke about. And so that's an easy thing you can do if you rent. Also, though, you could advocate for the strata or whatever to change, to get everyone to change, which would be cool. Of course, yeah, it's different. I'm so used to talking to Americans in general. I'm not entirely sure how it works up there.
But yeah, I was looking, I use a lot of natural gas. I cook with it and stuff. And I was looking on their website, the one we use in BC, and I couldn't find that anything that said green this. There was no option anywhere there, which I was surprised. I was hoping that I was just going to find that little button and it would cost me an extra, whatever it is, to green the natural gas I'm using, but I didn't see it. So hopefully if we push enough, they'll start having those options for us.
No, that's funny. I never even thought about that with gas. I don't even know if I think that's so far off of their thinking. But yeah, the gas is really interesting. Like they're in California, probably in other places, they're like full towns that are saying no more gas installs in new buildings. Like you're literally not allowed to do it. And it makes sense. It's a horrible, it's methane, it's like terrible emissions. It's dangerous. And then it's literally putting terrible stuff into your home. Like, and from what I understand, it tends to drop. So like if you have children that are like crawling around the floor, it's literally like dropping down to where they are. So you really want good ventilation, but also just you want to move away from gas. It's horrible stuff.
Do you know if you can convert furnaces? Like, could you convert a gas furnace to an electric furnace somehow, or would you just have to pull it out? That's not possible.
Probably pull it out. I don't really know.
Well, I don't know a lot about that, to be honest. I believe so.
Yeah.
This is the first time Graham and I have ever shared a stage. It's not quite the dream I've always had, but no, it's been really good. I think thanks a lot, everyone, for coming out. I think really it's living consciously and making these decisions. The rewards are going to be there. It's going to feel good because we know we're making the right choices and moving in the right direction. And it really is. It's like it's being part of the solution and not the problem. And there's small steps, and sure, it's going to feel heavy at times, but if more of us join and you convince others, it's like Graham was talking about, it's that movement. And once it's a norm, then that's what you do.
Thanks so much for joining the challenge, everyone. Keep educating yourself every day this month. And yeah, we'll finish off the month with, we'll send you all a reflection exercise so you can reflect on all the things you've learned and the changes you've made so far. And then we'll dive into February. So thank you, Graham, and thank you, Greg.
That was really fun. Thank you for all
and
for
awesome.
listening to me blab for 20 minutes. And yeah, get after it. And I'll try to make sure this presentation is available to you guys. And if you want more, please join the Carbonauts, and we'll take you through it.
Great. Thanks. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone. We'll see you next month.